Okay, we're going to take notes over the structure of the Earth and plate tectonics. Go ahead and write the title here. All right, just first start talking about, let's look at the structure of the Earth. The Earth is made up of three main layers. We know we got the core, the mantle, and the crust. The crust is where we live. It's made up of continental crust and oceanic crust. These are the two crust or two types of plates that we're also going to be looking at. You can see that the continental crust is less dense than oceanic crust. The oceanic crust, since it's more dense, if they converge, the oceanic crust will sink beneath the continental crust. And we know that this is called subduction. Well, let's look at what plate tectonics is. All right, so if you look at a map, you'll notice that all these pieces look like they fit together like a puzzle. So the continents, if you move them around, you could fit them together like a puzzle. So at one point in our geological history, all of the continents were together in a supercontinent called Pangaea. So this color right here, the color that we have here, this is the color that we're going to be writing. So go ahead and write this. Evidence from landforms that at one time all continents were together in one landmass. Continents do fit together like a puzzle. Go ahead and write that. Now you don't have to write number 2 or number 3, but rock strata, rock that contains the same layers, can be found on 2 different continents. So if you match them up together, those layers will match up between, say, South America and Africa. And the European coal fields, the ones that they have there along their coast, will match up to the coal fields that we have here in North America. So evidence for fossils. We looked at this map before. Fossils of the same plants and animals are found on continents, now separated by oceans. Go ahead and write this. Now let's look at plate tectonics. Well, the Earth is divided into 12 major plates. They move, which causes them to collide, pull apart, scrape against each other. And these interactions actually form characteristics of Earth structures. These are called tectonic features. Go ahead and write this. So you can see there the word tectonic refers to the deformation of the crust as a consequence of plate interaction. So a lot of the features like mountains, trenches, valleys that are formed by this movement are called tectonic. So here are world plates. You can see that the continents sit on top of the plates. So you can see here's the North American plate because the North American continent sits on top of it. The Caribbean plate here, this is the Caribbean Ocean. You've got the South American plate because South American plate sits on it. The African plate here, and so on. All right, so what are they made of? The plates are what's called the lithosphere, and it's made up of these top layers of the crust and the mantle. So you can see this top layer here is where you have the lithosphere. The crust sits on top of the plates, and the plates are what move. So what lies beneath the tectonic plates? Well, you have what's called the asthenosphere. The asthenosphere is a layer of molten rock that allows these to move. And remember, inside the asthenosphere is where you have that convection currents of the magma that actually causes the plates to move. So if we look here, you have the crust here. This is what we're on, the lithosphere. You have down here in the mantle, you have convection currents. And these convection currents rise because they're hot and they sink because they're cold. Well, as the circulation occurs within the mantle here, what's going to happen is this magma is going to drag the oceanic plate here towards the continental plate. And since the oceanic plate is more dense, it's going to sink and melt and come back into the mantle and come back around over here. And this is where we have magma coming up through the mid-ocean ridges. These mid-ocean ridges do occur in an ocean. They don't occur on a continent. They occur in the middle of the ocean. So this would be the Atlantic Ocean here. This was the mid-ocean ridge. This would be North America, and this would be Europe over here. And as it spreads apart, again, the magma is what's pulling the plates apart. So go ahead and write what's written here. All right, so what happens to tectonic plates and boundaries? Go ahead and write this question. All right, there are three types. There's divergent, convergent, transform. This is on our vocabulary. Divergent, di meaning two. So you can see here that they're going to split into two, going apart. Convergent, cone, meaning with or together, means they're going to collide. Transform is like our transform boundary that we have that sits under California. Some of you asked about California falling into the ocean. Well, part of California sits on one side of the plate, and the other part of California sits on the other. So basically, California is being split in half, and one part of California is going north on the Pacific plate, and the other part of California sitting on the North American plate is actually moving south. So yes, I mean, it's not going to fall into the ocean, but it is being split apart. All right, so divergent boundaries are boundaries that spread apart, and they usually will occur in an ocean. Now, there is a divergent boundary in Africa. It's called the Great African Rift. It is under land, and basically on land is a big valley where the plates split apart and the continent actually kind of sinks, and it's called a rift valley. But out here in the middle of the ocean, say we're out in the Atlantic Ocean, it's called a mid-ocean ridge or a spreading ridge or spreading zone. And this is where the magma rises, pulls it apart, and then you can see the oceanic crust sinks. Okay, so go ahead and write this. All right, so here's our mid-ocean ridge example. You can see that down here, this is the asthenosphere in the mantle. Here's our crust. What happens is the magma pulls apart the crust. Magma will rise up through the crack and actually create these ridges, and the ridges move along. So here is your longest mountain range on our planet. It's called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. There are mountains that run all the way along the Atlantic Ocean, and this is dividing or splitting apart, and this area here is moving towards this area. This area here is moving this direction. All right, so Iceland is a good example. Iceland sits right on top of that boundary, and Iceland is a volcano. So you can see here the North American plate, and then you have the Eurasian plate. This is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge you can see right here. This is the split right down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, this is a volcano. It is an island that reaches the surface. And basically you can see that Iceland is growing and splitting apart. So this part of Iceland is moving to the left. This part of Iceland is moving to the right. And as magma is pushed up through here, New Iceland Island is being made. So go ahead and write this right here. And you can see over here, you got pictures. This is Iceland. You can see this is the ridge. This ridge right here with this magma coming up is the ridge that runs right along here. So it's actually coming up through the middle. This magma here is coming from the asthenosphere. All right, convergent boundaries. There are three types. First type is one where continent hits into a continent collision. Another one where you have the continent that's going to collide into the oceanic. And then one where you have ocean to ocean collision. Go ahead and write this. All right, so look at our first one here. If we go continent to continent, if we get a collision between two continental plates, it actually will form mountains. An example is the Himalayan mountains. Go ahead and write this. All right, so here's a picture of the Himalayas, the way it occurred. You've got India, which was not a part of the Eurasian plate a long time ago. As it moved north, it slammed into the Eurasian plate and pushed up the land to form the Himalayan mountains. All right, we also have continental to oceanic crust collisions. This is where we get subduction. You can see the oceanic crust is more dense. It will sink beneath. It will melt. It'll cause magma to rise up through the cracks here in the continental crust, and it will actually form volcanoes. Go ahead and write this. Remember the subduction, sub meaning below or under. That's where the crust is going below another. The oceanic lithosphere subducts underneath the continental, causing a trench. So right here is where a trench forms when you get subduction between oceanic and continental. It's a very deep area here in the crust. So go ahead and write this right here. Then you also have ocean-to-ocean plate collisions. When two oceanic plates collide, one will subduct beneath the other, and this is where you can get a huge trench, the Marianas Trench, which is roughly 8 to 9 miles deep. It is the deepest area on our Earth. Go ahead and write this. Here's an examples for the Marianas Trench. You've got this trench that goes really deep. Here's some of the animals down here. The only reason we have these is because of the submersibles that can get that deep. Transform boundaries. An example of a transform boundary is the San Andreas Fault in California. This is the one where part of California is sliding north, the other is sliding south. And these are what form earthquakes. Earthquakes in California are formed by transform boundaries. Now, I want you to go ahead and write this, and I want you to add to this, earthquakes occur here. So write transform boundaries where plates slide past each other, and write earthquakes occur here. All right, so you can again see all the plates. You can see all the movement here. You've got, this is the San Andreas Fault where it splits California. A lot of the earthquakes and volcanoes that we have here in the United States occur right here in Oregon and Washington. This is an island arc right here. You can see these are an island chain. We've got an arc here. This right here, this whole area around the Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire. And this Ring of Fire is where the majority of earthquakes and volcanoes occur. All right, volcanoes and plate tectonics, what's the connection? So again, here's the Pacific Ring of Fire. This is where most volcanoes and earthquakes occur. Again, this entire area here is the Pacific Ocean. And the Pacific plate here is actually sliding north, causing all of these earthquakes and volcanoes to occur. Again, volcanoes are going to be formed by a few different things. You have subduction that occurs here, subduction where the oceanic plate melts and actually rises up for volcanoes. You get volcanoes at a divergent boundary, mid-ocean ridge, say like Iceland, and you also have what's called hotspots. Okay, this area right here is not on a boundary; it's in the middle of a plate. This is basically Hawaii right here, and basically there's just a kind of a hole punched through the plate where magma can rise up through it. So this is called a hotspot. So you can see here that there's a crack in the oceanic crust, and magma can actually seep up through here and form a volcano. This area right here, again, would be an island like the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, let's see. You got volcanic island chains. This is Hawaii. If you look at Hawaii, the only active Hawaiian island is the Big Island. All of the other ones, like Maui and Kauai, do not have active volcanoes on it. And as the oceanic crust slides across, okay, let me go back to that. As it slides across, magma will rise up through, and it actually created the Hawaiian Islands. As the oceanic crust slides, magma seeps up. There actually is a new volcano being formed now in Hawaii. It's just deep down under the ocean. And again, earthquakes occur on these boundaries. Some of the main ones here are along the Pacific plate boundary here. Go ahead and write this. All right, so where do they form? Again, they form along boundaries or where there are cracks in the ground that allow it to move. All right, so remember, the Earth is made up of 3 layers. These tectonic plates move slowly because of the convection currents in the asthenosphere. There are 2 major types of plates. There is the oceanic plate and the continental plates, and 3 types of boundaries. We have your boundary between your divergent boundaries, your convergent boundaries, and your transform boundaries.